Murderer! Murderer! Murderer!
This just about a half an hour ago, chants and screams erupting outside the courtroom after charges were announced for the correctional officers involved in the beating and later death of Robert Brooks.
Robert was beaten on 2 prior occasions between 9/07 and the time of his death, within minutes of his arrival at Marcy. Our investigation further revealed that there was no provocation by Robert Brooks that would have precipitated any physical response whatsoever, never mind the physical response that was inflicted upon him. I think any sentient human being looking at the tapes naturally comes to the conclusion that he must have said something, he must have spit at the officers, he must have resisted in some way, and the fact of the matter is he did absolutely nothing.
The first beating took place in what is referred to as the arsenal section of Marcy. It's the first enclosed structure that Robert entered after disembarking the bus from Mashaw. The second beating took place outside as Robert was being escorted to the infirmary, standard procedure when an inmate arrives at Marcy. And the third and final and fatal beating took place in the emergency room of the infirmary, which many of you have seen on tape. Indicted for murder in the second degree under a theory that they acted with depraved indifference to human life and caused Robert's death are former Marcy Corrections officers Anthony Farina, Nicholas Anzalone, David Kingsley, Christopher Walrath, and Matthew Gallagher. They face as potential punishment life in prison. Indicted for manslaughter in the second degree for recklessly causing Robert's death by essentially doing nothing are Michael Mashaw, Michael Fisher, and David Walters. They are facing a potential 15 years in state prison.
9 former or suspended New York State Corrections officers made their first appearance before an Oneida County judge. 5 of them, Nicholas Anzalone, David Kingsley, Anthony Farina, Christopher Walrath, and Matthew Gallagher, facing murder charges for the December death of inmate Robert Brooks.
Robert Brooks committed a crime. He was doing his time. He had a right to safety, to humanity. He was denied that. This is unacceptable.
3 other corrections officers, David Walters, Michael Fisher, and Michael Mashaw, facing charges of manslaughter.
And finally, indicted for tampering with evidence is Nicholas Gentile, a Class C felony punishment of like 4 years in state prison. 3 former Marcy Correction officers have reached plea agreements with the special prosecutor. I will not reveal their names nor their plea agreements until such time as they appear in court and enter their guilty pleas. At least 2 current or former Marcy employees and at least 1 current or former Mohawk employee are still under investigation, and the grand jury is still sitting and still able to hear evidence.
All defendants pleading not guilty today.
Late formal proceedings entered and pleaded not guilty to all charges at this time.
And released on bail, or in Gentile's case, of his own recognizance. Robert Brooks' father, among those watching today from the courtroom.
You marched him out. You let him go. My son didn't get that opportunity. My son didn't have a bail. And my son didn't have a murder charge.
Assumed special counsel investigation of this case. They immediately went to work. They worked closely with the members of the state police to put this case together. And certainly, as he said, it's not done, but I thoroughly appreciate the work and the professionalism that they put forward. I want to acknowledge the assistance that we received that was provided by the Onondaga County Medical Examiner's Office as well. So the state police, they were notified of Robert Brooks's death in the early morning of December 10th. Our investigation started immediately, led by our Bureau of Criminal Investigation right here within the Troop D area. We committed a significant number of resources in this case, which included the expertise and the support of our Special Investigations Unit, our Forensics Investigation Unit, and our Forensics Video Multimedia Unit. We expended a significant amount of resources and hours collecting evidence and analyzing hundreds of pieces of evidence. We investigated more than 400 separate leads that were emanated from this case, and we executed 16 search warrants to date. These numbers, they illustrate the extraordinary efforts that our members dedicated to this case and our efforts in collecting basically information to get to the truth and providing answers to the family. Now, I've been a member of law enforcement for a good number of years, and although I've personally overseen and investigated numerous criminal cases, I have to acknowledge that this was a horrific incident to view, and it was extremely difficult to watch and to comprehend. So I will clearly say here to the Brooks family and the community, I appreciate not only your strength and your composure for having the trust in us that we would do what we could within our power to ensure that justice is served.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Brooks, Jr. In December, I had to witness a brutal beating of murder by New York correctional officers. Earlier this month, I got news by the medical examiner. It was very painful, but unsurprised news that my father's death was ruled a homicide. After today, I witnessed over 10 New York correctional officers finally face crime charges. I will never get my father back. The men have robbed me of that opportunity. Still, indictments are an important step toward accountability. These men murdered my father. It was on video. The whole world got to see it. Waiting a month for these charges have been extremely hard, but these men need to be prosecuted and convicted of the crimes they made. But even these convictions are not enough. Any person with authority who allows abuse and violence to go on for so long also needs to be held accountable. And I pledge, and my family pledges, to not stop until we see change, until how our state prisons are operated. And this no longer has to go on anymore, and no one has to face what me and my family have faced. My father's death will not be in vain. Justice for Robert Brooks. Thank you.
Honestly, I think it's very, very gracious on Robert to speak in those terms. You notice when he talked about justice. He wasn't talking about vindictiveness or vengeance, but he's entitled to retribution, as is any crime victim survivor. There are the obvious disturbing things about the tape, the beatings, but there's a lot more disturbing about the tape, and to me the disturbing is the sense of normalcy, the way that everyone was just going about their business as if this was acceptable behavior, and I think that's what Robert is talking about, and it has to be done. I mean, my job, I'm focused. I intend to convict these defendants. That's my focus. Everything I've heard from the governor is that she's very acutely aware that there's a systemic problem that needs to be addressed, and it's not just Marcy. You see what's going on around the state.
Governor Kathy Hochul putting out a statement today saying the perpetrators were, quote, rightfully charged with murder. She also said she moved to terminate those involved.
Why do y'all hate us so? Why? What do we do? What do we do? We ain't do nothing. We help you build this country. We help you build it. Blood, sweat, and tears. We help you build this country. So why do you hate us?